Hello, my name is Ben Bradshaw. This is my subjectivities presentation for qualitative research. Um, so I want to start by talking about the identity of scholar practitioner, as I think this might be one of my biggest subjectivities. Um, I put more emphasis on the practitioner than the scholar side. So if anything, I would say practitioner scholar. And with that comes this strong preference for very practical um, actionable research. I know that that's maybe a little bit narrow-minded, but I just think that there's this divorce between what researchers are doing and what K-12 educators are doing. And so I have that hyper focus on practicality, which is a bit limiting and a subjectivity to be sure. In terms of the subjective eyes that Pestian proposes, I want to talk through them quickly and reframe a couple of them for me. He talks about an ethnic maintenance eye and an e pluribus unum eye that I am combining into what I'm calling an ethnic awareness eye. Um, there are those of us that have spent more energy kind of running away from any particular privileged ethnic identity, um, and more towards celebration of diversity and working against nationalism and those sorts of things. And so for me, it's being aware of the value of diversity and aware of what comes with one's ethnicity and one's ability to lean into or away from one's ethnicity. So I'm calling that an ethnic awareness for me. Um, and then he talks about a community maintenance eye. But the reality is I don't feel like I live in one community. I live 45 minutes from where I work. I feel like I am in multiple different communities. And so for me, it's more of a community traveler eye because I feel like I travel in and amongst different communities and seek to do so by learning from them and working with them and being respectful. So to me, it's a lot like traveling. So there's the community traveler eye. He proposes the justice seeking eye. Do I want to seek justice? Yes. Do I think that justice is very subjective? Yes. So I think my version of a justice seeker eye would be a problem solver eye. Um, if it's a problem to somebody else, then it tends to be a problem to me. And I tend to want to try to help them with it. So that's kind of how I see that. And then he talks about a pedagogical meliorist. Not actually changing the name of this one, but I do have to say that my experiences and my subjectivity tells me that every educator is doing their best. And if we want better, then it is our job as leaders in the field and as scholar practitioners and as researchers to figure out what better looks like, help build their capacity, or change the system to make their job easier, or what I think is often the case, redirect their efforts. I think that again, back to that subjectivity of a scholar practitioner, I think that we talk a lot about this is a great practice and this research shows that it helps, but we don't often look at what we have to take off of a teacher's plate in order to put in this best practice. And so looking at it from that practical lens of making education better, but not focusing on making teachers better, which is kind of how Peshkin describes it, is important to me. So I would lump all of those into a category that's sort of identities and beliefs that the researcher more or less consistently carries with them. And then I would put two that are a lot more fickle and more temporary. So he mentions the non-research human eye. And for me, that kind of encapsulates the ups and downs that we have as humans. I'm going to be more tired than one day, and that's going to affect me as a researcher. I'm going to be more excited about things a different day, different things like that, I think is its own form of subjectivity that we have to be aware of and our own finite bandwidth. And then we have to also keep in mind that in 2024, we are media consumers almost first and foremost. So I know that as a leader and as an educator, my practice is often um, impacted by whatever show I'm binge watching or whatever musical album I'm obsessed with. And as silly as it sounds, if a show that I'm watching changes how I lead a meeting the next day, I can only imagine that it's also going to change um, what I pay attention to as a researcher, or what I prioritize, what I notice. And so an awareness of that comes through daily reflexivity seems very important to me as well. With these come some strengths and weaknesses. Strengths, I feel like I am very fluid, very adaptable. I feel like I am hyper focused on practical applications of research and scholarship. That ethnic awareness piece gives me a desire to amplify the voices of those I interview and those affected by the phenomena or process that I'm studying, which I think is very important. But the flip side of every coin is also a weakness. If I'm so focused on being practical, I have blind spots to knowledge that may just not seem useful in this moment, but could be to somebody else. Flexible means chaotic a little bit too. You know, practical focus, but I might focus too much on fixing the problem, not slowing down to analyze it and research it. And just being honest, the appeal of practicality and convenience is always going to be there when you have a busy plate. So I think that can often be a weakness as well. This requires being actively practicing reflexivity, asking why throughout the research process. For me, I think voice memos are going to be one of the most practical ways to do that. Having a long commute, having time to be reflexive while I'm driving and just talking out things, and then later seeing what comes of it can be important. And then I think it's important to practice that reflexivity throughout the research stages, not just at the beginning or the end. Because like I said, some of these subjectivities, they ebb and flow and change based on what's going on in our lives. So practicing reflexivity throughout the research is important. Lastly, my research topic that I am most interested in studying. As someone who's looking at school improvement, I really think that improving schools often starts with how we schedule students and their classes, especially when you are thinking about multilingual learners in a high density school where, FTE makes or breaks you. And there are a lot of questions there, and we need to better understand what are our best practices in terms of scheduling in a high density school district. So that's kind of what's important to me and what I want to research in this moment. In doing that, I just have to recognize that the people affected by those schedules are not necessarily me, and I'm an outsider in that. I'm a traveler in that community. Thank you.